Ruth yearned for the gentle weight of a child in her arms. She dreamt of soft lullabies and tiny fingers wrapped around her own. She imagined bedtime stories and the sweet scent of baby powder. But fate, it seemed, had a different plan. Twice she had felt the miracle of life blossoming inside her, only to have it cruelly ripped away. 2 miscarriages, each one a blow that chipped away at her spirit, leaving her raw and wounded. The silence in their home, once a comforting haven, now echoed with her unspoken grief. Every empty crib in the market, every laughing child she passed on the street, was a sharp reminder of what she had lost. The pain was a constant ache, a heavy stone in the pit of her stomach. She tried to remain hopeful, to cling to the belief that one day she would hold her own child, but the fear of further heartbreak loomed large. Her husband, Henry, tried to be strong for her, offering words of comfort and promises of a brighter future. But she saw the pain in his eyes, the reflection of her own despair. The miscarriages had taken a toll on him too, straining their once unbreakable bond. They were 2 souls adrift in a sea of sorrow, clinging to each other for support, yet slowly drifting apart. The weight of their shared loss settled over Ruth and Henry like a thick fog. It permeated their every interaction, casting a shadow over their once joyful home. The laughter that used to fill their days was replaced by a strained silence, punctuated by forced smiles and empty platitudes. They were both walking on eggshells, afraid to upset the delicate balance of their fragile emotional state. Ruth retreated further into herself, seeking solace in solitude. She spent hours in the garden, tending to her roses with a tenderness that belied the turmoil within her. The feel of cool soil against her skin, the vibrant colours of the blooms, provided a momentary respite from the storm raging inside her. But even in the beauty of nature, she couldn't escape the heavy cloak of her grief. Henry, on the other hand, sought refuge in his work, burying himself in long hours at the office. He hoped that by throwing himself into his responsibilities, he could outrun the pain that gnawed at him. But the distance he created only served to widen the chasm between him and Ruth. Their conversations became strained, their touches fleeting, their once passionate love fading into a dull ember. One afternoon, as Ruth sat listlessly in the living room, her stepmother, Mrs. Agnes, paid her a visit. Mrs. Agnes was a woman of strong opinions and even stronger remedies, often relying on traditional wisdom and folklore. Observing Ruth's despondency, she patted her hand and, in a low voice, suggested a visit to a native doctor renowned for his healing touch, particularly for women struggling with fertility. Ruth was initially hesitant. She had always been skeptical of such unconventional methods, preferring the comfort of modern medicine. But desperation, like a relentless current, was slowly pulling her under. She longed to hold a child of her own, a longing so profound that it eclipsed all reason and logic. And so, with a flicker of hope battling against her skepticism, she agreed to see the native doctor. The following week, accompanied by a reluctant Henry and a determined Mrs. Agnes, Ruth found herself in a dimly lit hut, the air thick with the scent of herbs and incense. The native doctor, a wizened old man with eyes that seemed to hold ancient secrets, listened intently to her story. When she was finished, he spoke in a low, soothing voice, assuring her that her pain was not her destiny. He prescribed a series of herbal remedies and instructed her to perform a ritual by the river under the light of the full moon. The river held a mystical allure, its waters shimmering under the silvery glow of the full moon. As instructed by the native doctor, Ruth stood at the water's edge, her heart pounding with a mixture of hope and trepidation. She clutched the small pouch of herbs he had given her, their earthy aroma filling her nostrils. Closing her eyes, she whispered a heartfelt prayer, pouring all her longing, her pain, her desperate desire for a child into those few words carried away by the gentle breeze. The water was surprisingly cold as she waded into the river, her cotton dress clinging to her legs. She followed the doctor's instructions carefully, immersing herself in the flowing current, letting it wash over her, carrying away her pain and fear. As she emerged from the river, she felt a sense of release, a lightness she hadn't experienced in months. It was as if the river had cleansed her, both physically and emotionally, leaving her open to the possibility of a miracle. The ritual, though strange and unfamiliar, filled her with a renewed sense of hope. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to dream of a future filled with the laughter of children. She envisioned tiny handprints on her furniture, the pitter-patter of little feet echoing through their home. She clung to this hope with all her might, letting it fuel her spirit, driving away the darkness that had threatened to consume her.